Hello, everyone. My name is Sneha Jha, and I'm the editor of ET I'm pleased to welcome you all to today's session of IBM Boardroom Conversation, a program hosted by ET and brought to you by IBM and Inspira. In this session, you will hear from some of these security leaders and experts on how they are rethinking their models to proactively monitor their environment in the pandemic era and the tools and technologies they're employing to rapidly detect threats and accurately respond to them. We have industry practitioners who've been there, done that, and are here to help. With me is Ravi Shankar Malla, architect, IBM security, and specialist threat hunting and response. And also, we are joined with Om Ahuja, who heads the cybersecurity business unit for Inspira. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And now let me kickstart today's session by welcoming our esteemed panelists, Amit Dhawan, CISO Birla Soft, Rishi Rajpal, VP Global Security Concentrix, Mridul Sharma, COO, Arca FinCorp, Kumar Ravi, VP Information Security EXL, Manoranjan Kumar, CIO, Sri Cements, and Utkarsh Srivastav, CISO, Value Labs. Gentlemen, welcome to today's boardroom conversation, and thanks for coming on. The topic for today's discussion is Discover Critical Insights with Intelligent Security Analytics. In the COVID era, the security landscape is getting increasingly complex and diverse. The more digital you become, the more exposed you are. The cloud is making our borders more porous. Online services and apps are drawing out our defenses and expanding the territory, the need to defend, and a stay at home workforce is allowing guerrillas within your walls. It is well and truly a multi front war. The pandemic has not only accelerated the shift to digital, but also highlighted a rush of cyber criminal sophistication and collaboration. Moreover, the will and aggressiveness of well organized cyber criminals has elevated to a point where incident responses are now met with counterattacks designed to both punish and extract money from the victims via ransomware and other criminal activities to extract that final pound of flesh from the victim. It signals a new era of adversary sophistication. The intruders are coming to your company via island hopping or insider subterfuge, and they live off the land stealthily using your own tools against you. And when you retaliate, they will double extort you by escalating from theft to ransom and retaliation. It's truly a challenging and complex situation. With that as the premise, let us dive right into the discussion. My first question is to you, Amit. Amit, with wide scale remote working, which has become the new normal in the pandemic, how has it made the CISO's job more challenging? How has it forced you to rethink your security posture?
Thanks, Neha. The pandemic has impacted us badly, and it is here to stay for the next couple of years. It is not going away in a hurry. So, uh, what we need to do, or what we have done, and I'm sure rest of my colleagues have done the same, is realign our technologies to take care of people working from home on a long term basis, whilst maintaining the first principles of security in place. The endpoints are important, and they need to be strengthened a little more, and they have been strengthened a little more. And the biggest thing that the change that has happened is on the part of security culture. So aim, what we are pushing at is making everybody participate in the security culture piece, involving every individual, though it is not their responsibility, but bringing them on as a team member to ensure that the security is maintained for the company.
Mhm. Right. Rishi, Amit spoke about creating a robust security culture because a lot of these security threats and breaches happen because of sloppy security hygiene that the employees willingly or unwillingly maintain. And he also spoke about protecting the endpoints. Now, in a remote working environment, employees may be connecting from new devices and new networks where security controls aren't on par. So, how can CISOs create security controls designed to monitor and capture activity and also alert in this new environment, which is a departure from the traditional on premise world?
Yeah, thanks, Neha. So basically, I think what has gone down during the work at home environment is the tolerance. So if we would have been in bricks and mortars and we see an alert from an endpoint, and I'm sure all of us would have been getting alerts from endpoints. It is just the severity and tolerance, right? So severity has gone up, tolerance has gone low. So the moment we see an alert on an endpoint, it is like treat it like a 7, right? Because that endpoint is connected to your network. You don't know where it is right now, right? Because you had given it to an employee. Employee maybe now in the home or the hometown. We don't know, right?
Correct.
And so that is really, really critical. Having visibility is very, very important. So if you do not have visibility on your endpoints, then obviously you are living in a dark, because we all know, knowingly, unknowingly, we have opened up our network to a lot of VPN connections, right?
Correct.
So today we have thousands and thousands of users connecting to our VPN, which means that they have L3, L4 connectivity to my network. We do posture checking or whatever, right? But they are in our network, and if that is compromised, you are almost giving away your network to an external party. So I think almost zero tolerance towards any alert that is originating from our endpoints. Thanks.
Now, Ravi, Rishi raised a very important point about the fact that severity has gone high, but tolerance has come down, and we also need visibility into our networks. So, how can organizations detect not only the harmful acts that are associated with the misuse of authorized access, but also the concerning behavior and the activity that can precede the harmful act?
So basically, Sneha, some really valid points raised by Amit and Rishi. This is not here for a while. This is going to stay. And as Rishi very rightly said, to ease out the work, the process and all, there are certain policies, certain rules that we've brought into the picture, which might not be visible to everyone. So the most important point that I see over here is the need for the visibility. Because if we want to be aware of what's happening in my environment, I should be aware of the activities which are going on. And once I have that visibility with me, I should have the capacity to respond to any incidents which are happening. So very robust process need to be brought into place, which should combine not just the products, not just the process, not just the technologies, but it should be a combination of all three, keeping a very valiant, balance between them, ensuring that the need of the organization is met while I am giving the right amount of security and the ease to my users who are already, outside the perimeter, finding it difficult to connect to networks and things like that. But a balance has to be maintained while we are, overlooking all the things to provide what the user, what the organization need at that time.
Mridul?
Yes,
Any-
Neha.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So I'd like to get a business perspective from you on this. So how do you determine the appropriate level of business risk appetite for your organization? Because security is not just the job of the CISO, it's a business risk. It's something
Right.
that has far-reaching ramifications in terms of your brand and revenues and everything. So it has a wide-reaching impact. So how do you determine the appropriate level of business risk appetite that your organization can take while it's opening the doors for so many different kind of digital initiatives?
So, I'll take this anecdotal view. We prepared for everything just now. We set up everything, and I have a power outage because I'm in a work from home mode. So, these are the kind of, I would say the business environment changes dynamically. In every 5 minutes, you have something different, right? In today's environment, when we look at risk management, and what you said is right, that if I look at cyber risk and I look at digital businesses, I've got two kind of risks coming up. One is that for me, how to make sure my operations are on and running, and that too with a dispersed workforce, which is now outside my standard operating procedures, or the sanitized my company networks and environments where I had much more armament in place. So I have to make sure that the business runs, right? Second is also for customers, the moment you move them to digital channels, the expectation of the customer is that you have to have that service on and available 24/7, and the digital journey has to run. And then the question comes of putting the right amount of risk management in this journey, so that it does not so happen that the amount of risk management that you put into place actually breaks the journey. So the point I'm making is it's a very fine balance that you have to maintain of how, when you put any risk management practices in place, that it manages the appropriate risk, but at the same time, make sure the business runs and the journeys run, right? And that's broadly, in the current environment, it has been again that fine balancing act. We had to reinvent some new things. So especially, when employees actually move out, and the overall situation when, the whole system is under a heightened anxiety. So that has been, so we'll cover that separately, but, it's been a mix of that. So broadly, it's a balancing act between the two.
Okay. Ravi, my next question is to you. Today, the world is becoming far more digitally connected and hence more vulnerable as well. Earlier, the firewalls used to be the perimeter. Now people are. And in fact, I'd say that people, apps, data, they're all the new perimeter. And they're not always in the same location. So how do you deal with that challenge of perimeterless security?
Sure. So I think rightly said, I think there are no more fixed parameters. Every endpoint is a parameter, every user is a parameter. So I think taking care of the users and the endpoint, I think that's where the industry is pivoting. That's where the industry domain is pivoting. I think the controls which are highly focused on enhancing your endpoint security and end user awareness around cyber security are the ones which are of paramount importance. So I think the right strategy would be, which nowadays kind of balances between these two approaches, may it be kind of, if I were to give an examples of making your people aware on the cyber simulations or phishing simulations, getting them trained on that, bringing in the right set of policy around people who repeatedly become falter to that. I think that's where I think the organization is moving to. It is not only being taken now as good to have, but a must to have kind of measures. Like in our organization, we do phishing simulations almost on a monthly basis, and we do also keep a score of the employee risk profile. So we do have now employee risk profile as well, basis on how much they are prone to the cyber attack. So I think these kind of focused measures on end users as well as endpoint security are definitely the way to go.
Okay. Manoranjan, Ravi raised a very important point on focused measures on endpoint security and end users, where he spoke about employee risk profiling and cyber simulation. So what can enterprise security leaders do to mitigate the insider threat now? Because right now it's one of the biggest challenges of a digital stay-at-home workforce. And what can they do now and in the post-pandemic world to deal with this whole issue of insider threat? Because insiders can, insider subterfuge can willingly and unwillingly compromise the security posture of their organization.
Yeah, Mr. Ravi has said rightly that unless we don't create an awareness program within the organization itself, it's very difficult to manage the risk. We can only reduce the risk. We cannot guarantee that 100% we are now safe and sound from all such kind of attack or whatever it is going on. Security is such a thing. It is not only related to pandemic time. It is an ongoing journey, right? And what we think that nowadays in this situation, our readiness are, of course, it is there. At the same time, the attackers they have more active now, because they are aware that people are not there in the office. People are managing each and everything from the remote. So they are more active as of now. Earlier they were not, but now they are more active. So we have two kind of risk. One risk from external, other risk is from internal. What you're asking from the internal risk, how do we manage those internal risks? For such kind of management of the internal risk, we have some tools we have implemented. That's how DLP kind of thing is there. We have implemented some policy on email. We have implemented some policy on endpoint and server. All kind of things are there where we classify the data. And then based on that classification of data, we see that thing, what is going on, and from the organization to the external world. In our kind of organization, it is a manufacturing organization. We are there into cement manufacturing. So we have very little a number of people who are tech savvy. And really what we can also see that these people are really keen towards their production work. People who are there in the marketing, they are little bit vulnerable. We can think that they may be some kind of vulnerable because they can take the data of customer, they can share it with other colleague. But at that point of time, we also have the control over their laptop and their mobile itself. But same time, what we also say that Ravi has also said that we don't have to control as much as like tomorrow if the business can't run, we also have to run the business simultaneously. So we have implemented few tools which is now reducing the risk. But yes, we can't say that yes we are 100% safe.
Right. That's always a problem with security. Utkarsh, what are some of the challenges that you've dealt with, or some of the security concerns that have been raised within your organization during the pandemic, and what are you doing to combat those challenges? What are you doing to prop up your security postures?
There are various aspects like, vulnerability management. And, vulnerabilities are also of two types, which, most people, assume to be of only one. One is patch management and one is misconfigurations. So, we try to do patch management. We try to use remote deployment tools because, everybody is working from home. But, we forget misconfigurations many times. We forget to do benchmarking of our end systems. And, more importantly than to secure the servers and the networking devices, it's more important to secure the end users, because they are the people who are operating those servers. They have access. It may be role-based access. It might be only two people having access to a server. But if one of those two people are not secure and the server is very secure, it does not really matter. So, then we have to trickle it down and, create communication maps and see that, those servers are accessible to which people. And now this is the challenge.
Right.
So when everybody was working in a closed environment within the perimeter of the network controls were also applicable, but now they're at home without any network perimeters. So now those same people are more exposed who have administrative access.
Right.
And now the issues like, people sharing passwords, which, are very difficult to find out currently. In the corporate environment, when that, these are the floors of the office, or, if you talk about certain use cases that of SIM monitoring, for example, that one person can't be present at two places within 5 minutes, for example. It does not apply to home users. It's very difficult to really know where they are, physically. So if somebody logged on, for example, from two places, they might be just within the same building, or they might be, across the city. It's very difficult to find out because the locations are not tagged for us. So, VLANs are not involved, for example. So to identify the location of users is the biggest problem for us. And, to increase, to go forward with the forensic analysis and, to find out the root cause of issues. And secondly, finally, the updates and the upgrades and the patches, those are obviously most important. And, many users fail to log into VPNs, for example, saying that they are connected to their project VPNs to their clients, for 24 hours. So those kind of exceptional cases are there where people raise exceptions. So exception management is one more challenge. So it becomes complicated as I, move forward. So these are some of the few issues that I feel are important.
Right. Now, you heard the views of all the security leaders here. Some of them spoke about creating that culture of protecting the end user behavior and networks and endpoints and various other things. So clearly, the CISOs and CIs are doing much more than network security or putting up the firewall. Their duties have now expanded in various areas, and their duties now include figuring out how security enables and helps their digital business as well, because they need to create that protective layer of security. So how can a security provider like Inspira help enterprises better align their information security departments with the business goals?
So I heard a lot of views on endpoint related. Since there's a whole architectural change, you have users coming in from VPN. The end user machines are not trusted. you don't know the locations from where the person is coming in. So there is a need for doing better analytics on certain parameters to give that confidence. And one thing also I heard from one of the gentlemen is that any end user issue becomes a very high severity because it's not there in the perimeter. So we need to build what we tell as additional parameters to do behavior analytics on machines and on users, and give more insightful information, create that trust layer. Because we have also faced as a service provider is, since the situation is changing, a lot of things change. You don't have those physical analysts available 24/7 to look into it. So we need to build that layer of automation, because anybody can face any kind of contingency, and then we have to fill in the process. Also, we had to create a lot of structured workflows so that we are not dependent on the human capability, and also work with customers to have a proper workflow defined, so that whatever incident is arriving, we have a structured response coming in from customers, because sometimes even at customer ends, there are a few changes in the roles. So these structured approaches have helped us to address a lot of these problems and gaps, and have a common platform in which we communicate to the customers. Also, some architectural changes in terms of understanding better on user health, user identity, device health, on data classification, what are the anomalies we are facing, because focusing on anomalies is very important. Is something what we got to get deeper into it, apply some of these rules. And the last thing is, we've now been implemented what we call a federated threat hunting. So as an MSSP provider, whatever SIM platform or whatever EDR platform any of our customers are using, we capture the behavior analytics without capturing the data, and look at zero-day attacks, look at some anomalies coming in there, collate centrally, and search for those anomalies to all my connected customers. So without pulling in their data. So I'm not compromising on their multi-tenancy of the data. It's only the behavior and patterns which are exchanged and searched. So it's like a truly enabled platform where then we can get deeper into threat hunting. So it's collaborative issues which can be preempted, and then we can have a structured analysis and response on them.
My next question is to Ravi from IBM. We have two.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, Ravi, you heard all the CISOs and CIOs and also OM. Now, enterprise often look for endpoint-based approaches for advanced threat detection, investigation, and also response capabilities. But how can they eliminate silent failure by providing the highest levels of real-time monitoring capabilities that span across the detection, response, and forensics? Because this can be a huge problem, and we've seen this in the past with a lot of large corporations.
I would say, Sneha, this is one of the most important questions that is going around the industry right now. I heard gentlemen talking about insider threat, gentlemen talking about the policy changes which are happening. Om mentioned a very valid thing that the process is changing because of the paradigm shift that we're looking at right now. People not being in office, analysts are not there, so the dependency on the products are increasing. But as I said previously, also, we just can't totally rely on the product part, because we have to bring in the new process into the picture, and that is where service provider plays an important role, along with the products that the customer plans to go ahead with. Now, what happened is, the previous thought process was to collect logs and be aware of what is happening. Now we have to move a little bit away from the traditional rule-based detection, and now we have to move into the phase where we have to predict activities. We just can't wait for something to happen, because detection is easy when something has happened, but the response becomes difficult when you're already being impacted. But with the capability of being able to detect activities before it happen, to be able to predict these activities, you have with you the advantage of time. you have with you the preparedness to respond to these kind of incidents. So, it is time that we bring in things like user behavior analysis, where we understand what our users are actually doing. Very validly, Utkarsh said there were some rules that we were triggering while people were, in the perimeter. You can't log in from two different systems. You can limit people logging from a particular device, IP-based policies and all that. Now you can't do that. You don't know from where your user is coming, from which service provider he is going into the system. So now with that, what we have to do, we have to associate risk to all our users, ensuring that that risk level is maintained to the point where it is valid. And how we can do that? With a efficient process in place. While we are monitoring, we are understanding the pattern, we are using capabilities like AI and ML to predict the activities, and then have a process in place which not only help me in detecting, responding, but also be able to collaborate with people who really need to be aware of it. Because it's not just left to the point where people are working in silos. We have to be together while we're not sitting at the same place, but we have to collaborate, because everyone should be aware of what part they are playing as a part of the response. So collaboration again becomes a very important point. And that is how we have to bring in everybody on board while responding to these critical incidents, so that we can reduce the time, we can have the right stakeholder be aware of what they're supposed to do, what changes are required, what changes which have been done, so that going forward the process can be more efficient.
So Rishi, you heard both the security experts on the panel from Inspira and IBM, and they're talking about how behavioral analytics can be leveraged and automation can be leveraged to deal with some of these challenges. So what have you noticed in the industry, in your organization? How effective are behavioral analytics, AI, and machine learning to predict threats and to create a design mechanism in advance? Do you think these technologies have the potential to understand new risks and to anticipate new and potential threats to help the organization be more future ready and resilient? What is your take on this? What have you seen and observed?
So AI ML play a huge role in security today, whether it's endpoint or whether it's backend data analytics. Let me start with endpoint. So endpoint, gone are the days when we used to have signature-based AVs on the endpoints, because now the threats are so advanced that they will use our tools against us. So once they get a foothold, they will use the tools which were meant for system administrators to ease their job. They'll be used against us, something like a proc dump, something like to dump the passwords and move laterally within the network. So unless and until you have an AI ML based solution, which is not only just signature based, but also monitoring the behavior. So for example, why a person or an agent or a normal user should run PowerShell script on an end workstation, right? So that shouldn't be allowed. And why he's never done in the past, why is he doing it now? So behavior is a critical angle there. And unless you have an AI powered something on the endpoint, you can't do it. On the back end, if you have logs, what I think Utkarsh touched it, right? Suddenly you see one user login from India, and in 15 minutes you see a login from Nigeria. That's a problem, right? Then working at home has disrupted some models. Okay, in bricks and mortars, it was very easy to establish those models. In working at home, imagine everybody is working like 18, 20 hours. Maybe in the past when I was in office, I never used to log out at 2 a.m. But in home, I may log out at 2 a.m., right? Otherwise, that baseline could have been established that my normal working hours are 9 to 6. Why are you logging at 2 a.m.? Something fishy, right? But we've developed models. I think now there are platforms which have inbuilt capabilities of models rather than building static rules, which will give you intelligent data outcome to an extent that if they see, so for example, we have a model, if somebody tries to log on with two-factor from a country where we do not do business, it throws an alert. So those kind of models have been built in. Suddenly you see two connections from different IPs throw an alert. So I think very, very important AI and ML in today's world, not only an endpoint, but at data analytics at the back end.
Utkarsh, how are you leveraging these new so-called new and emerging technologies to up the ante on security preparedness?
Like you should consider SOAR technologies. I mean, the terms are overlapping. AI ML is also related to SOAR and vice versa. So, some automated response is required. So we are considering various tools. We have tested various tools, not zeroed out. We have SIMs. We are doing proactive monitoring, and we are also trying to do some prediction. So that all is involved. However, I want to turn this into a different aspect, because I am a DP of my organization also, data privacy officer, which means, protecting personal data of people in the organization. I would like to highlight one issue that, we might need to take care about, especially when we are involved with such technologies. When you collect and analyze data of users' behavior, and you also, see their times and zones and IPs or login, log off. Sometimes, some applications are there which can help in taking screen share, screen videos, especially of admin users. Some laptops have GPS data also. So there are many other things. There are even keyboard behavior analytics to identify a person, like a fingerprint in the way he does typing.
Right.
So, identification has become the major challenge currently when people are at home. Even your mother may be logging on to the system, right? How will you know? Because you have shared your password, and probably she is browsing cookbooks. So those aspects are also there. But when I talk about personal data issues, especially when you're doing business with European businesses, then you have to take care about how are you using that data. Have you taken consent from your end users and your employees? And have you appraised them about how this data will be used and how long it will be retained? So it's not only about our being ethical, but it's also crosses the boundary of compliance. So it's a very difficult question, and I'm sure I'm also moving in that direction, my organization. But we have to be conversant about these aspects also, and the people who have access to this data should be very, very limited.
Thanks, Utkarsh. Amit, with whatever we've heard so far, it's very starkingly obvious that there is a need to shift and evolve the security strategy to face these multiple security challenges. Now, investment in automation has become a must because in these times, especially because security talent is always very hard to come by. So investment in automation becomes very critical because you can't always throw people at the problem. So automated remediation it can help in reducing the reaction time also in incident response. On the flip side, automated hacking seems to be coming about as a potent threat vector. How should enterprises approach automation to gain that resilience?
Just to add on to what Rishi said and Utkarsh said, there are a lot of logs getting created. There are technologies available, AI, ML are few of them, and data analytics, adding on to that to tell you where the actual problem is happening. Users you have an identity issue where people are supposed to be logging in at this particular time from this particular location. That is changing. So how do you remediate that? Do you stop their access automatically? Do you send a notification? User behavior on the use of language because of the stress which people have. So all those things can be built in using the technologies which are available. Again, it depends on a use case to use case basis how you want to react. Do you want to stop access? Do you want to restrict access? Do you want to limit access to a certain area that this user can do? So a lot of options available and a lot of technologies coming in as well. In fact, some of the use cases of protection of the data itself, like and in offices we used to have ODCs where people could not take cameras inside the ODC, but people at home can do that. So there are technologies evolving which are blackening the screen when two heads come in front, or a person picks up a phone and brings it on top. So automation, AI, ML, all these things are converging into creating solutions which an organization wants. And depending on the individual requirements, maybe privacy or security or whichever else, they are being leveraged slowly. And there will be a lot of evolution in the next 2 years.
And speaking specifically on automation, how do you see it changing the way an organization approaches security?
See, automation, that's what I mentioned. See, automation is being leveraged to either protect your interest or restrict the access of the perpetrators. Looking at what could be exploited, what I need to protect. So automation is helping out. See, it has always been part of any journey, let it be IT or information security. Automation has always been a part of this journey. Only thing is, it is now leveraging the help from the creation of the inputs to this tool. From machine learning or artificial intelligence, it is picking up the intelligence, putting into the automation tools, and getting into the SOAR kind of technologies, which is automated response, depending on the case.
Okay. Ravi from EXL, my next question is to you. And we've seen that a lot of technology investment in the COVID era went into cloud, because cloud was suddenly catapulted as the biggest technology that could help organizations scale and manage a lot of these challenges that emerged from a quick movement to a work from home or a digital workforce scenario. So it's been a very big driver considering this whole new normal and work from home. But the interesting corollary, of course, is that we see a rapid rethinking of endpoint and identity access management, and also the concept of zero trust. So the use of cloud has necessitated a change in how organizations look at identity access management. And as a BPO outfit, you all handle tremendous amount of customer data. So how have you prepared to deal with the security gaps and the blind spots of cloud architecture?
I think irrespective of the COVID situation, but yes, definitely COVID has spurred the movement. But otherwise, also EXL, like many other organizations, on a cloud-first journey now, where more and more cloud adoption is happening. So there are two facets to that. One, the IT environment applications, business applications are going on cloud, and you need to adapt your strategy to have a well-rounded approach where you also take the cloud architecture and cloud security principles into the overall strategy that you have. So yes, I think there has to be a focused cloud security strategy, which is definitely different from the on-premise security strategy. That's the data center and the architecture part. If you talk about the end user aspect of it, so one is like you host your own data center in cloud. That's one part of it. But overall, like there are shadow IT. If I talk about, there are many applications that are third-party cloud service provider-based applications that the users are using. So as per a survey, on an average, there are around 1,300 applications, SaaS-based applications that organization uses. So I think one of the very important key control for securing, the cloud access from the end user, especially when they're not in the office, I think CASB is a kind of a solution, which kind of helps you balance on the end user protection. And this is more, it covers you from an insider threat management, especially on the cloud services. So I would say that is the second part of it. And then the third aspects of cloud adoption journey is that how it helps you in your security strategy itself. So I think of late, we have seen there has been a lot of change in, the trend that a lot of security services are coming itself as not now on-premise solution or like a license-based solution, but they're coming more of like a, cloud SaaS-based offering. So it's like, digital versus digital means digital is available or AIML is available to the offenders and also to the white hat community. So similarly, the cloud has also come in both flavors. So I think it's like how you adapt to it. So I think not only the IT industry is adopting it, even the information security is also adapting it very well. There are a lot of solutions even we have taken which are primarily SaaS based offerings, so that you remain focused on the core functionality rather than doing the infrastructure management part of it. So I think that's how you can really benefit from the cloud.
Manoharan, how are you looking at keeping your cloud secure and while leveraging its benefits, but ensuring that it doesn't become a security threat?
As of now, in Cement, we have no cloud visibility at all. We are not on the cloud. Each and everything we have our own premises as a policy vision. Some of the applications which are there on the cloud, those are only related to like CRM and mobile application, which has to be there on the cloud. for which basic security is being provided by those cloud service providers. And the application like Salesforce.com, what we are using for our sales people. For that, we have basic securities provided by them. So as of now, things are not on cloud. We are running entirely each and every application and solution from our own data center.
Vipul, I'd like to get a business perspective from you here. How do you, sensitize your board and your CEO to the changing and constantly evolving threat landscape? How do you get them to understand how high the stakes are and how critical it is to invest in security solutions and products and services?
So, this has played out exactly, that way, the pandemic time, and, how you look at the security posture being tightened or revamped for a part of the full group and expanding into the full group. So the example I'm taking here is that financial services has been one of the latest businesses of the Kirloskar Group. We started and we built this organization 100% cloud up.
Right.
And in doing that, the posture that we take and how do we ensure that the cloud journeys continue both for the employees and the customers, ensuring that the security is inbuilt into the design of the product. We have been talking of that, and we have been doing that. Now, when the lockdown happened, the first wave came in March. On the manufacturing side, we still have a lot of stuff which was still, so if, for example, you need to have a conference call, you need to go into a physical room and connect it from there, right? But the moment people go into their homes, they don't have access to that. So in fact, we carried out a full revamp of the collaboration mechanism and technology from X provider to Y provider during the lockdown months without anybody meeting anybody. So we migrated some 3,000 employees across 5 companies from diverse collaboration platforms onto a single platform, and we consolidated that. And when we consolidated that, we started training people. So right from the board downwards, the family members, the managing boards, the CEOs, the CFOs, and all employees downwards, we carried out trainings on how to actually, what is two-factor authentication, how to enable that. How do we ensure that your access will be taken off if you don't enable that? How do we make sure that you log into your account, and how we look at the endpoints and other stuff? So this exactly played out the same way. We are happy that we were able to kind of transform people, and people were able to appreciate that. But in this whole exercise, by the virtue that it ensured that the work that was supposed to happen, it got done. So the board was anyway anxious about it, but I think the resolve has got even much more stronger. So for example, some of the work that we are doing with Inspira now is to put some more security architectures in some of the manufacturing organization where it was not happening in a real-time fashion. So even on the SIM, for example, we are doing some work on those areas. How do you kind of do a real-time threat hunting and see what is actually happening? Getting visibility is the first threat. So one work I would say has happened, and the board is totally now glued on to it, and they are supportive of it. So one action is happening on the end users, endpoints, collaboration. How do you exchange information? And second has happened on the core, I would say, infrastructure, which is an on-premise infrastructure, your servers, endpoints, your network devices and stuff. So I think that's broadly it. But yeah, just to wrap it up, see, the key environment changed, it actually changed beyond technology. So it was about, the heightened anxiety that people were carrying. And that is, I think few of our colleagues talked about that, because, why did, the susceptibility to phishing and other socially engineered attacks went up? Because, employees had anxiety if somebody is, so that has happened. And, overall, the SOP that we were following, and which Rishi also covered, and otherwise, that, in a brick and mortar on-premise VLAN kind of environment, that actually went for a toss completely. Right. So I think, yeah, all of these things combined together. But broadly, yes, the boardrooms, I think, have become much, much more aware and anxious about this aspect.
Right. My next question is to Ravi from IBM. Ravi, the pandemic period has witnessed a radical change in the DDoS attack methodology to shorter, faster, more hard-hitting and complex multi-vector attacks that are expected to continue well into the post-COVID era. And with the increase in attack complexity and speed, What do you think organizations need to do to radically shrink the time from compromise to discovery to containment? How can they adopt an approach to deal with the constantly accelerating speed, frequency, and the severity of attacks?
See, this need for reduction of incident response time has always been there. With the current scenario, obviously, lesser number of people on board, and we have to look into all these critical attacks and respond quickly has kind of become the most important point when an analyst is working on an incident. Now, the most important part when we respond to any of the critical incident is first to understand whether it's actually a false positive or it's a true positive. Do I really need to respond to it? Because we will get 20, 30 odd different incidents which are happening. So validation of these events become of utmost importance. Now, this validation actually takes one of the longest time period which is required, where the L1s and L2s are focusing most of their time. So if we can reduce this particular time slot where the validation can be done with the help of tools, like, I heard people talking about automation. Now, I think the key over here is orchestration, where automation does play an important role, but we have to ensure that it's a logical thing which is happening. It's not just a click of switch, which is to turn the light on and off, but it is the logic that we have to bring behind clicking of the switch. If there's enough light in the room, we don't need to turn the light on. If we see that the sunlight is not coming, that is where we should be clicking on this thing. And that is where orchestration comes into the picture. Imagine a scenario, I get an incident, I'm a L1, I'm responding to it. And by the time I log in into the system, if the system can help me with all the prerequisites for me to respond to this incident, to term it false positive or false negative, if I have that done already for me, I will have the capability to reduce the time that I need to, validate this particular thing. And that is where prioritizing of incidents, that is where to be able to triage, out of these three, which one is the one I should be responding, will help me. And that is where the process comes in. So tools like SOAR, which some of the people mentioned, is one of the critical point in the today's next generation SOC, where we look at responding to incidents in an automated, orchestrated manner, can be a very useful addition to SOC. And again, process always plays the most crucial part. What are my SOPs while I'm responding? Do I have the right playbooks in places? What are the workflows that I'm following? Om mentioned a very important thing about federation. The cost of moving data could be too much. I cannot just bring everything into my SIM, but do I have the capability that I can go to some cloud service and extract the data that I need for that particular investigation? Can I combine data from 2-3 different SIMs? Can I get data from a tool which is not capable of sending logs all the time, but when the need arises, there can be an API call that can be made. So to have a process and technology in place which can combine all these efforts together can surely help in reducing the amount of time to a considerable level, when we're looking at critical security incidents.
What's your take on this? How do you think organizations can best tackle this issue?
Just adding on, what Ravi mentioned. So for us as a service provider, also the architectures are changing. For example, after an incident now, you have seen that a lot of malwares are emanating out of cloud. Malware is born in the cloud, executing in the cloud. And then how do you understand, analyze that? And there are some things where we learn in terms of, cloud. How do you do a forensic analysis and do an incident response on a server instance on the cloud is also something very critical, because you can restore your services in a faster way. But then you also require those instances which you need to isolate, do analytics on forensic analytics in terms of to understand the behavior as to how that attack has happened, and then integrated is something which needs to be understood. And also we've been working with some of the, like Mridul mentioned, new age customers who are developing their business delivery digital channels on the cloud as they expand on the serverless Kubernetes architecture, and understanding and a structured workflow as to if you are hit by a malware or if you are hit by a particular disruption in your service, how do you recover? And then how do you start your usual business operations? And the third aspect is, what is the shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the data owner in terms of their security, and how do you constantly check? Is some of these three aspects which are really critical as we go on for the digital transformation. And as rightly mentioned by Ravi, the dwell time automation is about helping you to take right decisions. Automation is not something which will take decisions for you, but it will give you faster analytical capability to decide as to what are should be my next steps, give you enough data to supplement and complement your decisions so that you can move on to the next phase where you can respond to the situation much faster.
Now, gentlemen, I'd like to understand from all of you that despite the importance of cybersecurity and the urgency that has been catalyzed by the pandemic, the budgets unfortunately are not unlimited and spending is bounded. So it's not like there's an open checkbook for the CISOs. So you have to always compete for budgets with other business investment areas. And this is a constant pressure on CISOs and CIOs. So what are some of the trends that you should watch out for, some of the trends, security trends that you should invest in? What are some of the key things that you, investment priorities that you have as CISOs in this time right now? Each of you, can you quickly share your closing comments on this? 2 or 3 points. Each of you will start with Ravi.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll be very brief around it. So yes, you're right. I think, definitely it's not like, open checkbook. So you have to really prioritize your investments, keeping in mind, when this work from home started, definitely a lot of, investments kind of were approved that wouldn't have been approved earlier, because I think, even business understands that, cybersecurity risk is an important thing to address, as it has become the boardroom discussion. Stakeholders ask for it, regulators ask for it. You have to go for cyber insurance. So I think everybody is conscious about it, because not only it impacts the organization from a reputation perspective, it also have financial repercussions. So I think it's more of cybersecurity has become now more of a business discussion rather than a IT or a security discussion per se. So I think the management understands it, board understands it. It is just that you have to present your use case with the right kind of facts and relevance, and it if aligns with the company strategy, business strategy. I think you definitely get funding around that. I don't see much of a challenge as it used to be 4 or 5 years back. So I think it just the key is you have to maintain the right balance, and you have to present the business case well with the right I would say references from the industry, from the peer groups, and I think that what it helps you.
Amit, what are some of the top security investment areas that you would look at, given the budgetary constraints, if there are any?
The focus is more on, controlling the endpoints and ensuring that they do not bring in more risk. Second part is automation to take quick action. We are not next to each other. We are not talking to each other regularly. All are on an environment which is virtual and working from home. So these two are the focus areas to protect the endpoints and to protect and to create automation so that leverage automation so that the response times becomes faster.
Rishi, what about you?
Yeah, I think CISOs are in a tight spot, right? Because the onus has shifted to us. Initially, we were asking for investments. We were not getting it. Now they have the investments. It's our job to pick up the right tools and right investments which benefits the business.
Said it better.
So it is a tricky situation to be in. And I think it gives a lot of empowerment to CISO. People who will make the right choices for their tools, technologies, processes, people will have a long journey in the game.
Okay.
First is to migrate all the security tools towards the cloud options that they have. Whatever is on-premise completely, we are shifting to cloud. For sure, that is the number one priority. Number two is to shift the SIM towards SOAR side, which also involves automation for sure. And then third is, automation of all other aspects, step by step.
Manoranjan?
So in this situation, I don't think budget is any kind of constraint for any organization. It's a similar kind of thing that people have to be vaccinated to get protected from the corona kind of thing. So the tool, the procedure, all the things are anyway it is required, and people and the organization, like management and the board people, they know that thing. Nowadays, data and other things are made much more critical for our kind of business. So things like we need to really identify the correct tool, like what Rishi has also said, that thing we need to find the correct tool, correct investment, so that the investment should not go waste. So that is what is taken. Thank you.
Ridul?
So, as we, do for a country level where you say, there is endless amount of money that you can spend on armament, on defense budgets. Similarly, the way the, threat, evolution has been happening and will continue to happen is there's no end to the amount of armament that we can put into place. For each business, it is very important that we first put the prioritization in terms of what are the risks that we see which are much more relevant to us. Then accordingly put the tools in place. Beyond putting tools in place, I think what you also need to do is that we need to also look at few of the I would say technology or I would say where we put a hardware or software solutions in place. We have to work on the software side of stuff, which is culture. Which is basic hygiene, training people, telling them what is what, because that is where I think those are the weakest links that actually break down. So I think work is happening across organizations, but for me that is an equal priority. It's not to put a very big lock on my front door, but even to say if my front door is sometime left open, if somebody walks in, my valuables are not lying all around that somebody can just pick up and walk away. So both things go hand in hand for me. If I'll sum it like that.
Om and Ravi, you heard all the gentlemen talk about some of their spending or strategy priorities. You've been also talking to a wide range of customers across industries. What have been your observations? What are the key investment areas that they are plowing their funds in?
So Sneha, while we meet almost many customers every day, what we have seen is there has been a little shift in the investment. Securities, technologies like SIM, log collection, analytics has always been there. But now the teams have started understanding the value of identity management, because the weakest link in the organization is the user. And now these users are spread across with no particular place to be, kept at, I would say no boundaries and all. So considering that, the shift has been toward the identity and the data, because you have to ensure the ease is there and they get the access to what they want while you're able to perform all the security measures. And on the other hand, the data which used to be there within your premises is now also going out with these users going out. So there has been a lot of thought process going toward the digital part of the solutioning, where data, identity, privilege management and everything comes into the picture, with the traditional SIM and SOAR functionality continues to be one of the most important priorities.
Just adding beyond just adding more on what Ravi mentioned, we are also looking at customers asking for comprehensive support in detection and response. So although they have made investments in their technology, as Utkarsh mentioned, the priorities have been to leverage the existing investments, help them re-architect and simplify their solutions, give them better visibility, and have a structured workflow and help them in automating the processes, so that you have a structured workflow to respond to the incidences across all business units. In some incidents, you have the legal and the HR issues also coming in. There are some places where, apart from cybersecurity users, the business users are also supposed to give their responses. So when you have a structured framework in which you are responding, and then you can trigger and analyze and automate certain tasks well, really helps go in a long way to improve the overall framework of SecOps, and also help IT ops in a way to function well with the business.
Right. I think with that, we covered a lot of ground in the course of this 1 hour discussion, right from strategy to technology to tools to to talent to creating a culture for security. I'd like to thank all our panelists and our partners today. Thank you so much. I know Ravi from EXL and Amit from Birlasoft have logged out, but thanks once again, Rishi, Utkarsh, Ridul, Ravi, Om, Manoranjan, all of you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and making this a very interactive and lively discussion.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you,
thanks
Sneha.
to all.
And
Be
take
safe.
care, all of you.